Welcome back, everybody, to the Coaching Space podcast with me, Justin Bodle, where I delve into the people side of performance. My guest today is Tom Dawson Squibb, a teaming, leadership, and people practitioner and speaker. With a master's degree in organizational psychology and diplomas in both executive coaching and systemic team coaching, it's no surprise that Tom is passionate about individual and team development, helping people to perform in their chosen spheres. He has worked in both the corporate and the sporting worlds for over 11 years, but it's really in the area of sport that Tom has specialized as a high performance coach. He has worked extensively with the UCT rugby team, as well as the Western Province and Stormers rugby team, and has been involved with a number of very significant and successful campaigns with both of those teams. He has also worked internationally with teams like the Royal Challengers Bangalore cricket team in India as part of the IPL, and the Melbourne Rebels rugby team in Australia as part of the Super Rugby competition. His love for rugby in particular has also seen him take charge of the reins of a number of teams in the past. Tom has worked as head coach of the UCT and the 20A rugby team, and this year he was appointed as head coach of the Aki Tigers themselves for the Varsity Cup and League competitions. Tom also runs an excellent podcast with former Blitzbok rugby captain Kyle Brown called The Leading Conversation, and I really encourage you to check that out. In today's episode, Tom and I talk about teams. Tom shares his insights into what he believes makes a great team. We talk about the role of team culture and leadership. He shares some of his latest learnings and ideas around systemic team coaching. He shares some ideas around what he's learned from his time with some of those great sports teams that I've mentioned. And lastly, we talk about the importance of joy within a team environment. Tom speaks openly and authentically, and I really hope that you enjoy. Tom, how are you doing? It's great to chat to you, man.
Yeah, good, Justin. I'm good. Thanks for having me on your in the early stages of your podcast.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, I really appreciate your time, and looking forward to chatting about a topic I know we're both really passionate about, which is teams and teaming. Actually, I there was a quote that I read from Adam Grant recently, which has inspired my first question. And he very simply said, putting people in a group doesn't make them a team. And I really love that. And I just thought, in your experience, what for you are some of the factors that would kind of move people from just being a group of people to actually becoming a team? What are some of those things that you think actually contribute towards that?
Yeah, no, cool. Thanks, Justin. Look, I think the first thing you got to think about is we're only a team if we're interdependent. So you do get groups of people, you might wear the same shirt, you might work in the same company, you might be called a team. But actually, if Justin does his job well and Tom does his job well and Josephine does her job well, individually with no interdependence, the team, inverted commas, might perform well. But really, there's no interdependence. So, I always look at it in different tiers. So if I use a sporting analogy, which I think I can use on this podcast,
Definitely.
Like if you think of a golf team, you'll wear the same shirt, but you're not really interdependent. You just got to add up the scores. And then you'll get a cricket team where there's individual elements and there's team elements, like if you're batting and I've got to run between the wickets with you, or if you're bowling, I've got to stop the ball in the field for you. There's more interdependence, but there's still a large amount of individual stuff. And then there's a rugby team, which is like highly interdependent. It's very difficult for a scrum half to play well if a fly half doesn't, and vice versa. So if you take don't think of it too literally, but sort of if you think of the metaphor of that kind of team, I always say, like, if I go into work with a team, I always want to try and diagnose, like, what kind of a team A are you, and B, what kind of a team does the challenge that you are there to overcome, or what is the purpose that you're together, what does it require you to be? And I think then when there's true interdependence, that's the first thing around a team. Then I think there's all the other things that we know, and you've probably heard a million times, do you have a common goal? Is there a level of trust that exists? Are you able to build, is there a quality of relationship that exists that allows you and I to get sort of a 1 + 1 = 3 type relationship? Do we have some set processes in place that allow us to team? Anyway, you probably got more than you bargained for with that one question, but I'll stop there.
No, no, no. That's absolutely, yeah, it's awesome. And for me, and you've kind of touched on it. I suppose it's a bit of an outcome, but I really believe that great teams are built on great culture. Is yeah. What's your view on sort of team culture and the role that it may play or not in the sort of success of a team?
Yeah, well, I mean, Justin, the word culture is thrown around a lot, isn't it? And I think it's important that we understand what it is. For me, team culture comes down to almost like the way we do things around here,
Yeah.
which is governed by a set of beliefs. So
Yep.
what we might see on top of the surface, if you think of it like an iceberg, you see certain behaviors on the surface,
Yeah.
and then underneath the surface is the beliefs and the motivational things that hold motivational sort of triggers that hold that in place.
Yeah.
Um, so I think team culture is very, very important in terms of teams performing. What we mustn't do is we mustn't mistake team culture with vibe or spirit. We might have a great
Yes.
team,
Yeah.
wonderful culture, and we all get on and we all mates and we bright together. But the Chicago Bulls, who just had a massive documentary made about them, were
Yeah.
clearly not all mates.
Yes.
So I don't think that has to be in place, even though
Yes.
we would be part of that.
Yes.
Um, I would say team culture, very important. Do we have a set of values and a set of behaviors that we can stick to as a collective?
Yep.
Do
Yep.
we allow for individuals then to do we allow for individual strengths and passions to come through?
Yeah.
That will be success. And I think that needs to be part of your culture.
Absolutely.
Some collective things that we've bought into, that we understand, that we
Yeah.
track, plus allowing an individual to understand his or her best way of operating and allowing for that within the confines of your agreed behaviors and values. That for me then equals, that for me is a strong culture. And I think
Yes.
teams that have that really do well, because you might have the most I don't know if this is a sports podcast or not, actually.
No,
So I don't
no,
know how
go
many
for it.
sports
Yeah, you
analogies,
can. Absolutely.
but but line out plans and attack plans
Yeah.
and stuff are a dime a dozen. But it's your culture that enables that to be executed well or not. It's your
Yes.
culture that brings the belief to execute that plan. So if we're
Yes.
saying we've got a great plan, but it only works when we've got a high work rate or a high work ethic,
Yes.
and this could be the same in a business team. You've got
Yeah.
this wonderful strategic plan for a year or for 3 years or for 5 years, but it requires massive work ethic and it requires massive interdependence. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter how good your plan is. It doesn't matter how beautiful your goals are and how beautiful they look on the walls. If
Yes.
your culture is not enabling certain behaviors, you're not going to get there. And that's why I think the cultures is a huge defining part of a success in teams.
100%. No, I love what you said there. Absolutely. For me, I often sort of see, I see it as the foundation upon which you kind of build a team, but it's also, like you said now, it's almost also that it's like the cement that's holding all these pillars together. It kind of infuses itself through everything. But like you said, it's really about, we've had this conversation a lot within our team environment. The culture's got to be a doing thing. Like you said, you can put all the words up on the wall and you can have the best plans, but it's about living that culture daily, and that comes through behavior.
Yeah, I had a really cool experience with a team that I'm working with recently. Um, I mean, it's embarrassing to think that I only really fully worked it out now, but it's just
Not at
thinking
all.
about the difference between we're always learning,
That's
the
it.
difference between values and behaviors. And, and
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed having discussions about values,
Yeah.
because what it does is it really gets me to understand what people value, like what do they
Yes.
believe in, what are they
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Once we understand that, we've got that, for me, those are building blocks. Then we
Yes.
say, right, so what behaviors emanate from those values?
Exactly.
And I think you need to have both discussions. So you're going to every
Yeah.
corporate, and not every, but most corporates in the world will have
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
values
Yeah.
up. Probably 50% of the company actually know what the values are.
Yep. Yep.
Um, But I think it's up to us as leaders or people running teams and what have you to say, okay, we've got these values, like let's interrogate them. Like, do we really believe in them, and how do we interpret them in our specific team? Okay, so what behaviors might we need to display and hold ourselves to account based on those values? So I don't think we should ever doff our eyebrows up, or whatever the expression is. We should never sort of raise our eyebrows at values, because they are so important.
Yeah.
And they're so important that we need to interrogate them. And they're so important that we need to understand what the behaviors are that emanate from those values. That's
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, for me, it's exactly that. What does that value look like in terms of behavior? If you were to live that value, what would it look like practically? What would that look like on the field? What would that look like off the field, at practice? You know, it's those kind of discussions that get guys to really think about it, you know?
I think there's a million teams in the world that don't have a value of passion.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about like pride and passion and integrity. I mean, we've heard it a million times. But like, okay, cool. So what does passion look like when it's healthy?
Yeah.
No, it looks like high work ethic. It looks like guys being able to display emotion. It looks like it looks like real genuine care. It looks like extra work and sacrifice. Great. What does passion look like when it's not healthy? Well, it's over emotional, it's irrational, it's it's unable to discern process from outcome. You know, okay, cool. Well, let's be mindful, because every value, value is only a value if it costs something.
Yes.
And as we know, an overused strength becomes a weakness. So if we believe in something so much, and we want to display those behaviors, if we display them too much without the balance, then I think that's the downfall of passion. You know, it's like a guy saying he's a great communicator. He communicates so well that he never listens.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you got to understand the brights and the dark side. Yeah.
Sure, I love it. That's actually a really nice question, and to think about, because guys strive so hard to kind of live those values, but it's nice to actually almost balance it and say, but hold on, what could the flip side of the coin be? So I really like that, Tom. So something that a quote that I've heard you say before when you were talking about teaming, it went something like this. You said, in teaming, we need to focus more on the dance as opposed to the dancers. Something like that. I think you were quoting Professor Hawkins. I'm not 100% sure. And so tell me a little bit about what that means.
Yeah, no, that is from Professor Peter Hawkins, who's probably one of the world leaders in team coaching. Who I was very lucky enough to do some studying under.
Yes.
He's a very charismatic, highly intelligent human being that I enjoyed working with. So his idea is that in teaming, it's like it's not about, okay, Justin's got his strengths and Tom's got his strengths, and we must go and develop Justin, and we must send Justin on lots of courses, and we must send Tom on lots of courses, and they must go and become the best human beings they can be. We'll put them together and they'll perform well. Incorrect.
Wow.
It's way better to go and say, right, let's send Tom and Justin together away and to have conversations and do collective development to say, right, so how can I get the best out of you, and how can you get the best out of me? So in my capacity as a rugby coach, I once, in a one-on-ones, I asked the question. I said, what can you and I do to significantly increase the value that you're adding to this team? So in that question, the hero was the team value, was the value added to the team. That was the hero. That's the challenge. We worked backwards from that, and I said, what can you and I do? So there was a shared collective responsibility and an implication around the dance. So what can we collectively do together to add value? So I quite like that, because I think that indicates for me an appreciation that the dance is so important.
Yes.
So I would advocate, like, people working in the teams, yes, you want people to understand their strengths and their weaknesses, etc. But what about getting people to really, like, what do I need from you? What do you need from me? Have those conversations. You know, in a team that I'm working with currently, like, we spend a lot of time on peer feedback, quite controlled, quite regulated. We have a phrase that we use that sort of houses this feedback. So it's quite formalized for now, and then hopefully it'll happen more organically. But really, the essence of that is that the team requested that they were more direct with each other so that they could be more harmonious as a group,
Yes.
not just harmonious so that we bright together, but harmonious so that they can get the best out of each other. There's a huge amount of research that Ben Darwin has done on cohesion and team cohesion. And his whole theory is that, like, successful teams, it's not about culture. It's not even about do they get on. It's about cohesion. It's basically like, how long have you been together, and are you able to get the best out of each other? Sure. Now, I like it, and I completely buy into it. Yes. My challenge to Ben is that you're only going to keep people together for that long if they like being there.
Exactly.
So there's a precursor. I think one of the precursors to cohesion is feeling like you're in a psychologically safe space where you feel engaged and you feel looked after, etc., etc. So, but that will be for my next conversation with Ben, But but I think that is ultimately an indication of the dance, is the teams that do well, and he's done research in sports, business, everywhere. That they've been together for a while because they understand each other and the needs of each other almost subconsciously, and that's the appreciation of the dance and not the dancers.
Beautiful. And it comes back to what you were saying, I mean, question one about that sense of interdependentness, the way you kind of working together, and how exactly that. But it's almost being so intentional that you're actually having those questions around, what do you need from me? What do I need from you? I love.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if the listeners to this, Justin, are football fans, but there's no coincidence that Liverpool are winning the Premier League.
Yeah.
Like they're cohesive. They pick the same team all the time, and they've built for 4 years. Yeah. And then you get the sort of Manchester Uniteds and the Chelseas and the cities. Lots of new players coming in and out, less cohesive, lots of rotation in the team. Like statistically, Darwin will tell you that they're not as likely to win. Now, of course, not stats can't tell you everything, but they're less likely to win.
You're right. I love it. That sense of cohesion. Sure. So something that, I mean, you've spoken about, a couple of team environments briefly. I mean, you've obviously had the opportunity to work with a number of pretty high profile and really high quality environments, obviously in a sporting context. I mean, obviously you're involved with Western Province and the Stormers. You've worked with John Dobson, obviously for a long time. You've obviously worked with Gary Kirsten, in the cricketing space, and I know you were with Dave Wessels at the Rebels for a while as well. I mean, you've been exposed to a number of pretty diverse and pretty interesting team environments, and I would think in the business world as well. What are some of the sort of the biggest learnings that you've taken from getting exposure and actually being immersed in those different environments? What are some of the biggest learnings that you've had, whether it be about teams or anything?
Mostly from my own stuff ups. This is probably sound a bit of a cliche, Justin, but I think like we just know less than we think we know, and that each team that you go in has got so many systemic impactors. And what I mean by that is that like if you go to RCB in the IPL, right? And you think, and you've read about coaching, and you've done books, and you've read, and you think you can go in there and just go and coach a team and they'll be successful. You're dreaming, There's so many things. There's media, there's owners, there's just so many things at that level that impact performance, and it's the same at any level, if
the politics.
If you're working in politics has quite a negative connotation, like politics gets in the way, and I don't think it is just politics in a negative way. I think there's a lot of things, like if you're working in retail and COVID strikes and the economy shrinks by 9%, and fewer people have got access to disposable income to go and buy clothes in your stores, it is going to impact behavior in head office, because people are now concerned and worried about their space. And so like that thing has impacted performance. Now you think, geez, I'm a great leader and I can lead my team, and well, you might be, but there's more at play. So I think like the more and more I've done this work, I think I realized that our job as team coaches is to be great sensors as well as great question askers and advice givers and whatever else we are. We've got to be able to sense what's going on. We've got to be able to ask the right questions to sense what's going on. I think if I've learned one thing in lockdown from chatting to like a lot of those people that you spoke about, like curiosity might have killed the cat, but curiosity is going to make you great. You know, like you've got to keep asking. And I had a conversation yesterday with a pretty well-known rugby player, and I said to him, like, bud, I'm just going to tell you now, I'm not going to give you advice because I actually don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be, and I'm going to ask you questions, and I'm going to listen to you. And also, it's not just that I don't know; it's that you are getting a shitload of advice from a hell of a lot of other people.
Yeah.
And my role, I can play the best role for you by just listening and allowing you to unpack.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing with this guy, you know. So yeah, I think I've learned about systemic impactors, curiosity, just a lot. I mean, I don't know how long you want me to go on for, but I think I've learned a lot as I've gone by. I think I probably started by thinking that you can win things on dreams and vibe. And I think now that like I feel that I've got it worked out, which of course I don't, because it'll change in a month. But I feel like the balance between relationships and relationship quality, care, and standards, and the drive and the accountability and the push.
Yes.
Got to get that balance. You've got to get that balance right. Like you're too high on the standards and what have you. I think you're going to tire out players and tire out people, and if you're too just on vibes, I don't think people are going to be held accountable enough, and we're not going to get the performance that you need to. And I just see, like, for me, it's probably one of my newest learnings is just understanding the nuanced balance between that, and realizing as a team or a team coach that you are biased towards one or the other, and that you need to mitigate against through your assistants, through your 2ICs, through your whoever you're working with, you know.
Yes, sure. I love that, exactly what you're saying about relationships and standards, you know, because they can seem so sort of polar opposite in some ways, but actually the coaches that can cater for both, like you said, you actually sort of harness the power of both, but it's about that balance, you know. And you spoke about Liverpool. I mean, I can picture a guy like Klopp. You know, he's very sort of authentic and open with his players. He's hugging his players. He knows all the, you know, the backroom staff, the kitchen lady, like everybody is, you know, it's part of, and you can feel that in the team. It's always about the team first, but there's also this real drive for performance and this kind of mentality of like, you know, we're going to be a nightmare to play against. You know, they really drive themselves. Even when, you know, things were won, it was how much better could we be? You know, I picture Russ probably as well. You know, I don't know. Yeah, what do you?
Yeah, 100%. I think like it's that Navy saying, isn't it, where they go, I'm going to get it slightly wrong, but they're going to go in battle, or you could substitute battle for performance, or combat or competition. You don't rise to the occasion, you sink to your training level.
Sure.
You don't rise to the occasion, you sink to your training. And I think like you can have all the vibe in the world. If you haven't formulated habits to your training, you're not going to perform, you know. And I think like there's that beautiful Wendell Holmes quote where he says, for simplicity this side of complexity, I don't give a damn. For simplicity on the other side of complexity, I can't remember what he says, I'll give my left arm. It's not that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And what it is, like, I think a lot of us, and I certainly probably still make this mistake. Like we hear something, we read something. It's like the All Blacks sweep the sheds, you know, like, oh my God, that's so brilliant. It's simple. Let's go and tell my schoolboys or my club side that we must sweep the sheds because the All Blacks do it and it's great. Well, that's bullshit, because A, it's inauthentic to you, and B, there's a reason that they sweep the sheds. because they've had infinite conversations and understanding, and they've gone through the complexity and the toughness of them getting pissed on tour and all of these different things, and they've emerged with Sweep the Sheds.
Yes.
You need to go through that your own complex journey in order for you to find out what's simple. So if you're trying to work out like what are your team dominoes, like dominoes is another thing that I'd talk about, like your first dominoes, get you going, or what are your team values? Don't rush them. Don't think you can do them in a half an hour workshop. You can't. You know what I mean? Like go through the complexity, and you arrive at something that's beautifully simple and it works and it sticks. Why? Because it was quite tough to get through there, So I believe it's important as a team leader to allow for like imperfection and wrestling and trying out things, what have you, and you'll reach where you need to.
Absolutely. I mean, you've spoken a lot about leadership, Tom, which is something else I know we both really passionate about. And for me, there is such a clear link between your leadership and the team, the sort of quality of the team, I suppose, the sort of culture of the team. Do you see a very clear link as well? I mean, you've spoken a lot about leadership actually while you've been talking about teaming. Is it, why is that such an important link for the success of a team?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I would recommend you read a book called The Captain Class by Sam Walker. It's a fantastic book. Have you read it?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Yeah. It's a great read. It's very stimulating. He just basically goes and he looks at the best sporting teams of all time in any sport. So the first half of the book talks about how he gets to these 11 teams, I think it is. And then the second half of the book is what he sees as the common denominator. And the common denominator is the captaincy. And it's that the captain is not the best player. The captain is sometimes a bit rogue. The captain bleeds the club or the place that he or she is in. It's not just he, sorry, it's he and she. There's female teams in it. So that's one side of the book. There's a counter argument to that, which is called the captain myth, which is written about golf and what have you. So you can read that too. But I don't know if I've seen a success story without there being some quality leadership. Now, quality leadership doesn't always look the same.
Yes.
I think quality leadership is very contextual. So Siya Kolisi, exactly the right captain for the time. Do you know what I mean? Would he have been
100%.
I've had conversations with Gary Kirsten, and he said that I've been lucky enough to work with him and spend a lot of time with him. And he, by his own admission, is a good leader in certain times.
Yes.
And I don't mean times, I mean in certain contexts, in certain environments, with certain kind of people around him.
Yes.
So I think understanding what's required, understanding yourself, and that allows for a team to perform. So I'm not sure you can separate quality teaming from quality leadership. I think it's massively related and interlinked.
Just intertwined. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think, I've seen it for myself within a work context, but also within a sport context. And I think it's just that, it's this kind of what you were saying, you can build this incredible culture, but your leaders have to firstly model the behavior, because they can't be saying one thing and doing something else. So there's got to be like a synergy there between what they're doing and what they're saying. But the culture almost kind of takes on the personality of the leader. I feel it's literally as linked as that, that like the team will ultimately almost become a reflection of that leader. So for me, exactly what you're saying. I don't think you could really have a high quality team without a high quality leader. That leader might look different, and it might be a different type of leader depending on the context of the team. But I think there's got to be synergy between the two.
I'm lucky enough to lead a little system at the moment, and like I feel I need to be quite aware of. Sure, like I'm aware, like I've got a lot of weaknesses, I've got a lot of flaws and things, and I need to be mindful of that all the time. That doesn't mean that they go away, but sure, like I think the acknowledgement of weakness and acceptance of weakness is as important as utilizing my strength. Otherwise, my team is just going to become a function of me, which might not be. It is going to become a function of me anyway, but you can mitigate against those weaknesses through,
Yes.
I think, skillful use of other leaders. That's why I believe in
Absolutely.
leadership as a collective rather than a leader.
Yes. Yes. I absolutely love that. Yeah, that is so important. And I think something you were just saying now, just speaking about leadership, and I'm just sort of jumping in here. Do you see that would you say that there are certain characteristics that are important for any leader in any team, even if they're different personalities, etc.? Do you think that there are certain kind of non-negotiables that every leader should have in terms of certain characteristics or sort of parts of their character?
Try not to say cliched stuff here.
Putting me on the spot. No, go for it.
No. I don't mind that. I don't want to say like, he or she must be authentic. I mean, like, I think a leader needs to be constantly curious about him or herself and about the system within which they lead. There has to be a curiosity. I think a leader needs to have a fair degree of courage. And that doesn't mean just being blindly brave. I think he needs to be, or she needs to be, courageous enough to be wrong, courageous enough to show vulnerability, and also courageous enough to take decisions when Kyle Brown, who I run my podcast with, always chirps me because I said democracy is overrated, and I still believe it, but like, I think you sometimes need to be able to have the courage to say, right, I'm going to make this decision.
I love that.
And then I think, I mean, that's probably enough. I think there are a number of other things. I think, I suppose it aligns with the curiosity thing, but I think skillful leaders know what they're good at.
Yes.
And skillful leaders are able to get the best out of other people and know what they're good at and allow that to shine. Yes. Like, that's the skill. I always praise Gary Kirsten because I'm like, Gary, like, when I'm in your environment, I'm in your company, I feel like we're not friends, but we've worked together a bit, and I feel comfortable and empowered to be myself because he obviously gets me and he allows me to then be that. And I think, like, that's a skill. Whether he's doing it inadvertently or not is irrelevant. That's a skill. Like, make people be the best version of themselves because of what you are enabling.
Sure. Jeez, I love that. That's powerful, Tom. I love that. Okay, final question. You've spoken a lot before about.
I've spoken a lot, I know.
No. You've spoken before about joy within a team environment, the importance of joy. You use the word joy. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a biased view, I think, I've been doing some work with a player overseas, and his coach doesn't believe in joy. He's not particularly interested, and nor does he see it as his role to bring any joy to the team as the coach. Once again, like, I believe that we have the right to joy, and then if I can create a joyful environment, I'm going to get more discretionary effort. I think we know, and I think the neuroscience will tell us that fear is often a stronger motivator than joy, and that a lot of us have a lot of insecurities and fear around in us, whether it's imposter syndrome, whether it's fear of failure, whether it's fear of letting our families down, whether it's fear of not having a salary, all of that stuff exists, and I think it's always hard to take that down, basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's like safety, insecurity, all those things we need. And I think, like, one wants to try and balance that with joy. And I think, I'm not a hedonist, but I wish I were a hedonist. I think I enjoy good times. I'm like very driven by the idea of collective euphoria, and people achieving things together is just a beautiful thing. It's why I love singing together. I love teams singing together. I just find the power in it, and that for me is joyful. I don't believe everything has to be fun. So fun for me is fun. If I use the analogy, fun is like McDonald's. You go to McDonald's, you get that nice little flavor, it gives you a little rush for half an hour, and then 40, half an hour later you feel cuck and you eat too much of it and you get fat. And joy is like fine dining. It's like for you and Derbs, you go into the oyster box and you have a nice meal and a nice drink, and it's cost you a lot of money, and you got to save up, and you only do it once every 2 months with your wife because it's expensive. But you go there and you come home and you message your friends, you put it on Instagram, you message your friends, you're like, geez, we had the most brilliant experience. And it was tougher, like you had to invest some money in it, you had to invest time, you put your best shirts on, you put some cologne on, but it was a joyful experience. Right?
Yes.
And I think like we can get joy is vital. People want that, we seek it, and we've got the right to have joy, but not just fun. It mustn't be mistaken as fun. I think we can get great joy and great satisfaction through the sacrifice and through the pain that we go through,
Yes.
So I would say that's my simple view on joy.
I love that. Like it's something a bit deeper almost. It's not like you said, like it's just frivolous and fun. Like you sort of used the word vibe in the beginning. It's like you can have a good vibe and we can have a jaw and have some fun, but like joy comes from almost a bit of sacrifice and something a little bit deeper that really connects us and engages us, I suppose, whether it's to
you've seen
cause
it,
or to the purpose.
You've seen it. Obviously, sports is one thing, but like you see it in a lot of different spaces as well. Like I asked the guy who's been a long mentor of mine, and I said to him, what can sport learn from business and what can business learn from sports? And he just said like sport can learn from business rigor, like the real rigor and the metrics and what have you. And this is one guy's view. And he said business can learn from sport like purpose, passion, like this energy that you get from sport. I think that's why for me sport's such a drug, because I just love the craft, and a lot of it's quite monotonous. And like once you've seen one training week at Western Province, you've seen a million training weeks. It's all pretty monotonous, but it's that moment when the guys have won, or you've helped a player, or I won't lie about that, I love winning. I'm competitive, so like that time when you're holding a trophy and guys have put in, you've had some tough conversations and it's been hard, and like you're just drinking out of a trophy, or you're holding a trophy, and like it's just got so much meaning, because of everything that you've put into it. So I think that's joy, but it doesn't have to be all a slog. You're allowed to laugh and you're allowed to have fun along the way.
Yes, and I think that is so important. Well, in my first episode, I chatted with Grant Bashford, and Bashy was talking about what he had learned working with Dick Muir and with John Plumtree, and one of the most important things he said from that was, don't lose the element of fun. You've got to have fun as part of it, and I think it sort of tapped into what you were saying there. So I love that.
I believe a lot in that. I probably spend too much time thinking about like how can we make things fun, but I always want to know, like, if we're running a gym block for a month, okay, where's the fun in that? Because I know it's good, and I know we got to do it, and we got to have metrics, and we got to push. But like, how are we building relationships? How are we building purpose? How are we building joy in it? Are we doing awards? Are we rewarding guys? Are we walking around saying well done? Like those little things are important. I personally can't have an environment where it's like, I don't have to say well done because gymming is part of what you're meant to do. Well, I don't know. Like that for me doesn't cost me anything to praise people for effort.
Yes, absolutely. Tom, that's awesome, buddy. Listen, thank you so much for your time. I know, like I said, I know you are a busy guy and you're juggling a lot at the moment, but I really appreciate it. If people want to get hold of you, if they want to follow you, if they want to check out some of your content, I know you've just released your first online course on teaming, on teams. Where and how can people get hold of you?
I partnered with an organization called RCA Consulting to create my own online teaming course, which is great. So I think it's, very, very cost effective and simple way for me to put stuff out there. And we've already had some people sign up, which is great. It's a 5-module course, so you can do it over 5-6 weeks. Very practical videos, written, little assignments you've got to do. So I'm really excited about that.
Awesome.
I've obviously got my Twitter and Instagram is at the Sporting Mind is my handle, And
nice.
and then I've got a website, just tomdawsonsquibb.com. So please,
Awesome.
it'll be awesome to, or LinkedIn, I'm there. So if anyone wants to reach out and chat and ask further questions,
Cool.
maybe to me and you, let's encourage that.
Yeah, that would be
hear.
awesome, man. That would be awesome. And like I said, guys, at the beginning, in my intro, Tom also runs an incredible podcast called The Leading Conversation, which you do with, like you said, with Kyle Brown, former Blitzbach captain. It's been, I've absolutely loved it. It really inspired me to finally get my act together and get this going. So thank you for all that great content. People can check it out on any of the podcast stations, really. Am I right?
Yeah, it's on iTunes and Spotify and Anchor and all of those, all platforms. So thanks for that plug, and just well done to you as well, Justin. I know it's not easy to do these things. I was probably not brave enough to do it on my own, so I went and fetched Kyle. But we do enjoy the dance. We have a good dance. But well done to you, and good luck with the rest of this one. I'll definitely be following
Thanks, man.
your podcast.
Thanks, man. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Listen, Tom, thanks so much, and we'll chat soon, eh?
Yeah, no problem. Good luck. Thanks,
Cool.
Justin. Thanks so much
man.
for having
Cheers.
me. Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Bye.